Hello everybody. Hello. Today we're going to do character creation for a fighter. I know it says up there extended combat zone, but yeah, it's going to be character creation for a fighter for Barbaric Fantasy. So how do we want to go about doing this? We want to create a fighter. So we have to think of a character. Now in mind, I'm thinking of this barbaric world, wilderness, people living in nature. Society's trying to build up. Society's trying to protect each other. Groups are feeling strength. Groups are trying to conquer others, show their strength, protect their territory. So you may have tribes in the barbaric hills of the Northland, or tribes in the jungles of the South, or bands along the coasts of the continents. You have groups developing their power. So they have battles, they have combats between towns, between territories, between one valley and another. A lot of people live in peace, a lot of people trade and share. Then you'll have some groups every once in a while that try to gain power beyond their territory. It's just part of human nature, right? So I have in mind a tribe in the northern areas of the world, cold, mountainous areas. And it's a tribe. And their positions of authority are based on power. Their positions of authority are based on their ability to fight. So this fighter has proven himself in battle against other groups and has risen. And let's say that the fighter is not intelligent or wise, but is responsible to the group, responsible to the people, and fights well. So it has a position of authority because stable, power, has that ability to lead and direct the other fighters and direct the town. May not understand all the complexities of life and how to organize things. Hey, that doesn't matter. What they need is a leader who will protect them and make decisions when they need them made. He can always listen to the people around him and discern from their behaviors what may be the best decision considering the group. They may not always make the right decision, but hey, that's the way it works in a barbaric society. And so you have a fighter in this tribe. So now we're going to build a character. So we're going to look here in this Conan book. This is the Conan RPG book, the main book, where you begin to see some casts. So where does this fighter come from? You'll see here there's a crafter caste, escaped serf, farmer, herder, merchant, outcast, petty nobility, priesthood, warrior. So now we think, okay, what did this fighter do? Where does this fighter's family come from? And I'm just going to imagine this fighter is bred into a family of fighters. So the caste of this fighter is a warrior class and has been trained since a young age to fight, to know how to fight, to know how to wield a weapon, to know how to protect oneself in battle and attack and fight. And so this fighter is born of fighters and warriors in the tribe. Now, you could have a fighter that comes from a herder, and the herder has been developing some fighting techniques, but usually they don't have enough time to really devote to fighting skills, so you'll have someone in the warrior caste, sort of their position in society with other people. We'll say it's a warrior. And you'll see here caste talents, where they say a sentry and subject. Now, let's go ahead and read what those mean, because this will add to, when you read these about sentry and subject, this adds to the background of the character. That's what you get out of these Conan RPG books. A lot of good character development. So the sentry says, you learned at a young age that the watchful eye subsists on little rest. So long as you have had a total of 4 hours of sleep within the last 2 days, either 1 4-hour stretch or multiple short rests, you suffer no penalties for sleep deprivation when making observation tests. So we already see here that we have a warrior who's tough to survive out in the wilderness. They only need 4 hours of sleep, wakes up, and is ready to go. This is training. This is a survivability. So this is one of the talents that this particular fighter would have in being able to survive in the world. Does not need a lot of sleep. So that gets built into the character. And then we see down here subject. You are a subject in good standing to a lord or king. While subject to their laws, the taxes you face are much less than the more expensive taxes on others. Whenever you pay upkeep within your homeland, you can reduce the amount of gold. So basically we see someone who's in favor of the lord or whoever is the chief of the tribe. We see that this fighter is in favor and has a position of authority, but under the chief of the tribe. Okay, so we're already beginning to see that we have someone tough in the woods, tough to survive, but is recognized with a position of authority and trust inside the tribe. Okay, so we're just getting started building here, but we're using these books. Now, we go through the stories here, and you can do, each cast has particular stories. There's crafter stories, farmer stories. We're going to go out here and find the warrior stories. Now, I went through this and already rolled, and we're going to say it's a glorious battle. So this is the warrior story that this warrior had. It was a glorious battle. So let's go down and read the glorious battle. Now, as you read this, you begin to get an understanding of more of the backstory. So this is a story from the fighter that we're putting together. The battle began with your numbers few. The bulk of your force was a day away and would be tired from the march. You knew yourselves dead, but you had to hold out so that the warriors would stand an even chance against the horde that you were facing, right? The fight was brutal. The corpses of horses and soldiers and other makeshift barricades piled up in front of you and turning the fight from a massed battle to deadly skirmish. Fully half of your number was slain, but you gave better than you got, and it was them that routed. So when the rest of your army emerged from the forest road, they found boys turned into veterans. Your company was promoted to guard the sunrise flank, and those who survived became strong friends. So what you have here is a young boy. This fighter at one point was a young boy, got into a battle, and with the underdogs. They were going to lose. But they found the strength to survive and win and had a glorious battle. Tough battle. But through that, this particular fighter gained a position of authority and respect for having gone through and survived a very, very hard, brutal battle. So we begin to see that we have a tough warrior, capable of fighting, doesn't need a lot of sleep, and is now trusted as a position of authority in the tribe by the chief. So we kind of go through here, through the book, and we begin to see how this book is helping us piece together certain elements of the character's backstory. So now we go through the archetype, and we could just say that it's just, this fighter is just a barbarian archetype. Because in this book, there is no archetype for a fighter, so we can just say it's a barbarian type fighter. Do you hail from one of the untamed lands bordering civilization, whether to the far north? In this case, yes. Your ways are as strange to civilized folk as their customs are inscrutable to you. So, being from a barbarous tribe, you have uncivilized ways. So many of the things you do are not based on logic. They're not based on study. They're not based on manipulation. They're not based on a lot of knowledge, trying to play with knowledge and trick other people like that. Barbarous tribes basically have very simple ways of talking and understanding each other. It's like a code of conduct that is so simple, they just live that way. And so sometimes it's hard for people from barbaric tribes to go into a civilization and understand why people are thinking so much when it's just what you got to do. You just go ahead and do it. And so we begin to get a sense of this barbarian who is the fighter and has training in fighting. So you can look through here and see some of the bonuses and things that this little area gives you. You'll have some proficiency in acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, and survival. That's kind of simple. Survival, we already know this warrior is going to survive in the wilderness on very little sleep. And you can put in some stealth, maybe some healing if you want, but this character is basically going to be a fighting machine who is fighting for the tribe and has a position of respect and honor and trust. Okay, so we're putting together an idea of who this character is. Lots of other options, and the nature. And in this, you'll see the nature down here, where it goes from cautious and curious and inspirational to learned. I went ahead and picked stoic. I thought stoic would fit well. This just gives you, 10 options to get an idea of a backstory. The idea of the PC's nature. And stoic, come down here and read stoic. There's little in life that cannot be withstood, and no hardship, physical, mental, or even social, is so great that you cannot overcome it. So this is a fighter who looks at any challenge in life and faces it and doesn't back away, but has that stern look of a barbarian fighter to face the situation and doesn't think about it, just maintains a seriousness and does it, like knowing what needs to be done. So we begin to get a sense of the personality, stoic personality, survivability, fighting, trust. So as this character walks through the tribe, may not say much and may respect the people in the tribe, but just the presence of this fighter is going to inspire the people. And you can go through the education, however you want to educate your character. Let's see. I went ahead and said in this one that the fighter followed in the family footsteps as the education. There's other options there. So following in the family footsteps, you learned your career directly from one of your family members, whether a parent, grandparent, uncle or aunt, brother or sister. This meant that you received additional attention, but also meant that the lessons were longer and the standards were much higher. So just that this fighter was trained within the family, and that following the family's footsteps of being a warrior for the tribe. And you can see down here that, once again, animal handling, society, and survival. In the Barbaric Fantasy, I have a skill for traditions. So it's understanding the traditions of people and dealing with them, so you get some bonus in that, because you understand how society works. Okay, so you have education, trained with the family. So as you go through these books, you get a sense of how these books can help you really develop the backstory. Now, the war story, there are many, many options. You defeated a savage beast, dispossessed of things you had, dispossessed of land or the homes, whatever. You lost something. Or next one's like gained a lost treasure, or gained a great treasure, or gained the favor of a local noble. Now, this one I said gained a great treasure. So at one point in time, this fighter gained a great treasure and lost it. And this is what's going to move this fighter to want to regain some sort of treasure in the future. Something inside that fighter had a big treasure, had a great treasure at one time, and then somehow lost it. And there's something within this stoic fighter, within the tribe, that is fine, can sit there and protect the tribe, but there's something inside of the fighter that when the idea of treasure comes around, there's this longing to recoup, to get back that treasure that was lost. And so that's the one I picked there for the war story, was gained and lost a great treasure. So now this fighter inside of himself wants to find a treasure, and that's going to be the hook to get that fighter into an adventure, to go off to some strange land, some city, some ancient ruins, some lost place of mystery, or combat another tribe. Treasure, the idea of treasure, once you put that in there, that's going to be a hook to bring that fighter into the adventure. All right. And just one other thing that you begin to see in this book, for the Conan story role-playing game, is a section on skills and talents. This is pretty interesting. This is way different than D&D 5e, but it's really interesting. Is for these skills like acrobatics. You see here acrobatics, agility, alchemy and intelligence. Just going to pick up a few here. Animal handling. You get these trees of talents. And they're pretty interesting to go through these trees. Athletics has a tree of talent. So you don't just get athletics. You get a tree that you can develop, and each part on that tree develops certain aspect of your athletics, gives you certain specific abilities to your ability score of athletics. And I think this is brilliant because you can take this tree and start building it into your character. Now, let me see if I can take you back to page 4 of this book. I think that's where it's at. I'm not sure. Or maybe earlier. Maybe here. Where is it? Here. Try and fit it all in, but there's a lot of them. So here. Trying to get the page to settle down here. Skills and talents, chapter 3. So you see there a list: acrobatics, alchemy, animal handling, athletics, command, counsel, craft, discipline, healing. These are all skills that you can build into the game, into your character's backstory. They're all very interesting, and they can be very specific, like the one there at the bottom, sailing. If your PC comes from your player character, PC comes from the ocean, or a pirate, or a merchant, or a sailor, they have this sailing tree that they can develop certain talents around sailing. If the PC is a healer, there's some skill on healing, and then you see this tree develop of different talents to develop that skill. It's really interesting. It's really kind of cool. Now, if you look in here, command, look down the list, you see command. That coincides to a skill that I put into my homebrew called leadership. So we're going to go to command and give this command skill to our fighter. So let's see, page 61. Let's see, so command. Command is the measure of your ability to manipulate groups of people, including but not limited to those expected to defer to you, like people like your soldiers, and you're leading your soldiers, such as though of a lower military rank or social status. So, but yes, this is what we have, is we have a position, our fighter is in the position of authority, and so has this ability of command. And so now if you look over to these of command talents, it's going to start out with captain. Captain is, as you read down here, you have learned to issue orders in such a way that they are clear to the recipient. We have a stoic fighter. who knows how to give clear orders with little margin for misinterpretation. You may re-roll 1d20 when making a command test, but you must accept the new result. So it gives a little perk there to say, okay, as a captain, which is the first talent for the skill of command, you can re-roll a command or leadership skill that you want to do for your PC. So right there we begin to see the very first talent, captain. Now from there we can take 3 paths to 3 different types of captains. We can go to the inspiring leader, which is off here to the left, or we can go straight down to the guardsman eye and the wise veteran, or we can go and take the path of heed my words, commanding men, and minions. So where do we want to take this tribal fighter who's respected? The simplest way right now is just to take it to inspiring leader. So that's how this PC can develop further the skill of leadership and command. And so you don't see skills in D&D 5e being developed in certain ways and certain paths. You just have leadership, and whenever you need to exercise your leadership, you make that roll. But here you can actually come in and define much better what type of leadership, what type of command your fighter is going to have. So if we come down to inspiring leader and just read, you are an inspiring presence to those who follow you. We know this about our fighter already. All of your allies and subordinates gain this moral soak. So you give them like extra hit points, you give them extra strength, you give them extra bonuses against fear, against intimidation because of your presence. You give the people around you this lifting up. Now you might think, okay, that sounds like something a paladin might be able to do. Well, in this case, anybody, any PC, whether it's a ranger, monk, whoever, who wants to take leadership roles can get a skill in leadership and start developing that skill towards being an inspiring leader. You do not have to be a paladin. It doesn't have to be a class feature. It can be anybody in your group who's developing that ability, whether it's a barbarian, whether it's a cleric, whether it's a druid. Whoever wants to develop this commanding skill can take this tree under command, or I would say leadership, and develop that particular aspect to develop their leadership qualities and be able to, just through their presence, bolster the resolve, bolster the strength and the courage in their fellow fighters. And so any characters who are within close range will also gain this moral soak. Soak is your ability to withstand damage. So it's like you can get damage resistance because you're so pumped up by your leader being there with you. You feel more courageous. You feel like, yeah, we can do this. And so you have certain advantages in battle just by the presence of this fighter. It doesn't have to be a paladin. It doesn't have to be anybody who has special leadership qualities and special features. No, it's just a skill that's being developed for your PC. Okay, so this is about the extent of how you can use this Conan role-playing book to actually develop a character, the character's backstory. There are other Conan books with a lot more archetypes and a lot more casts and a lot more cast talents and a lot more natures. There's 12 other Conan books. 12 other Conan books. Yeah, you heard that right. 12 other that give more casts, more archetypes, more natures, more war stories, more everything in each book. This is just the basic book that's giving the basic archetypes, the basic casts. But from there on out, it goes into all kinds of people around your world that you can begin to describe. These are just the basic types found in this book. But the other books give pirates, give shamans, give, oh my God, there's so many. It's almost hard to think. There's some words you wouldn't even know of. There's types of people you wouldn't even know of until you start reading about them, and you find out they exist in that world. Oracle, statesman. God, there's so many. Then from other parts of the world, you'll have like a part of the world like India, where you have certain castes of people and what they do. You'll have raiders, scouts. Oh my God, there's just so many. Okay, yeah, that's probably enough. And each one of those castes, like a scout or an archetype, each one of them can be developed with all kinds of other war stories and educations and natures. And so there's a complete wealth of information in these Conan books to really develop backstory and really understand who your character is in this barbaric world of fantasy. So now I want to take you into, that should work. Okay, so here we are in an Excel sheet. Right? Here we are in an Excel sheet. And you'll see up here where it says Fighter, Level 2. So I can change the level just by clicking here. Change the level by clicking this little arrow. There. So Level 2. And over here, you have Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma. You want to change a number? You just click on these little arrows over to the side. And for a Level 2 fighter, there's going to be a total of 19 points. So we can see there's 19 points. But that's a combination of ability scores and feats. So if we come down here, character sheet, you'll see in here where it says custom feats, we have here shielded mount. So at one point in time, this fighter of ours is going to be able to ride horses into battle and be able to protect its mount, its horse. So we've got that feat going for the fighter. So at some point in time, we're going to be developing more of a mounted fighter fighting from a horse. We got Polearm Master, which is going to give this fighter more of an ability, which is going to give our fighter more of an ability to fight with spears and reach weapons. And we've got the Captain Talent Tree to give that inspiring leader talent to this leadership quality. And we've given our fighter 10 extra feet of speed. So counting up these points, 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4 plus 2. So there's 6. So in all, there's 6 points of feats that are being added into this 19, the score of 19 right here. And so with the ability score is 16, Strength, 11 Dexterity, 12 Constitution, 10 Intelligence, 12 Wisdom, and 9 Charisma, plus those other feats of 6 points, we come out to 19 points for our second level fighter. And so keeping all of the PCs at the same level of ability points, 19 at level 2, keeps all of the players balanced to each other so that their ability scores are not going to be crazy compared to the other ones. They can raise their ability scores if they want, but they're going to be able to get less feats. They can bring down their ability scores a little bit and get feats. It all balances out in the end to where there's more customization, but it's basically just strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, some feats. At a certain level, you got your character. As at level 3, there's more points, 3 more points. You can buy feats, or you can raise some ability scores, but you keep moving up. At each level, you're moving up the strength of the character, the ability of the character. And So now we're going to come down. We see already that the maximum hit points of the second level fighter is going to be 32. Reserve hit points 16. And we'll continue on. Over here, we're going to see how much I can squeeze in here. Yeah. We're going to see over here for adventuring skills, the second level fighter can get 26 points of skills. Now, how do I figure out skills? Well, all these red X's over here means that a skill is untrained. So all of the skills start out untrained. So they all have red X's. And they all receive a -2 penalty for being untrained. So then you have to buy skill points to raise those up. And so if I look up here under animal handling, if I erase that red X and take away this untrained status, you'll see that that 26 goes to a 27. So our PC is now trained in animal handling. If our PC wants to be proficient in animal handling, we put an X in the P column, and we see that 27 go to a 28. So every step up gives an extra proficiency for the skill. And let's say we want to be an expertise. We want to be an expert in animal handling. So now we see that 28 go to a 29. And so at each step of that proficiency, we see that modifier for the skill rising according to the proficiency for the character, for the level of the character. So we'll come back down, make it untrained. So this PC should actually not be untrained in animal handling because the PC is going to be a mounted warrior at some point. So it should at least have a proficiency. Oops, need to put in an X, not a P. Oops. X. There. Okay, so now we need to come back to 27, so we need to take away something. We already know that our character has endurance. Endurance is your ability to go without sleep and maintain high hit points. So we have to make sure that our PC has endurance because it has that warrior capability, that warrior talent to go without sleep. So the endurance has to be at least a proficiency because that's part of our backstory. So we're going to say the leadership has to at least be a proficiency because we're developing that skill into an inspirational leader. So the leadership skill has to be proficient. Perception should be high. Persuasion, as part of being a leader. Profession, maybe there really is no profession. Maybe we could say that there's really an untrained profession to actually make money for this fighter, that the fighter basically just lives by fighting and training. So we could put an X there and say that our fighter is untrained in a profession. And survival should at least be proficient because we know our fighter can survive in the wilderness. Stealth and hiding, maybe we can take that away. It just makes a proficiency in stealth. There, now we're back to 26. Now that our fighter has a proficiency in animal handling to have a horse for a mount. Okay, so you can see a little bit there. So there's a lot of customization in those skills in so many different ways. If you had 90 points, you can make every single skill and put it into expertise if you had 90 points to spend. With 26, you're really only doing about a third of the capability of everything that's possible. So that gives a good, rounded, balanced customization to exactly how you want to develop your character. If you want to develop a character around a lot of knowledge skills, you pump up the knowledge skills, and that takes away from some of the adventuring skills. If you want a character that's really into intimidation and leadership and persuasion, you bump those all up to expertises, and it's going to be hard to challenge the leadership of that particular PC. So let me go down here so you can actually see some of the knowledge skills. Let me see if I can take it down. Yeah, now you can see some of the knowledge skills: arcana, dreams, history, linguistics, medicine, monsters, nature, and you'll even see traditions. Now, I would say for this particular fighter, since the fighter is not really trained in a profession, I'm going to take away that proficiency in trade and put that proficiency in traditions. Because this fighter understands society and the ways of society and knows his role in society and what the role of other people are in society to maintain a stable community. So I'm going to give this fighter a proficiency in traditions because it understands the way of society in that part of the world. Or maybe you take this barbaric fighter into a big city and doesn't understand traditions, and then there can be a disadvantage to those roles to try and understand the traditions in a big city. But where this fighter is right now in the tribe, fighting with the tribe, the traditions has a proficiency. Now, if at some point in time that fighter goes to the city, you can take away that traditions proficiency and put that into something else. Or maybe that would help the fighter live or survive in the city. But right now, the traditions has proficiency. So, then over here for weapons, there's lots of weapons to choose from. There's long sword, great sword, battle axe, short bow, unarmed strike, whatever you need to, you just grab it from the list. We're going to say long sword. Give the fighter a spear, some daggers, and that would be about it. Start off with that. And as we can see right now, there is no ranged weapon. So if we wanted to give this fighter a ranged weapon, we could always throw the spear. But if there's something else we could add in there, the short bow, what would fit with a fighter like this? A sling, crossbow, longbow. Nothing really seems to fit the style of this fighter, because the fighter basically lives by the sword and is trained by the sword. So, if anything, we could give this fighter a sling or a dart. Doesn't seem to really fit the character, but a dart, right? A dart. For some reason, that's one ranged weapon that this particular fighter could use. Okay, so then we come down. Armor, there's a lot of armor that we can choose from here. Padded leather, studded leather, hide, chain shirt. Just going to pick chain shirt. So the AC base comes up to 13. We'll give this fighter a shield. That'll be part of how the fighter protects its mount. So now we'll see that the AC comes up to 17. So this fighter is coming out pretty good AC. Fighters need to have a good AC because they don't have the half damage that true barbarian classes have. So now we're going to come down and start looking at the features and other enhancements for our fighter. We're going to give this fighter the Battle Master subclass. And the fighting style is going to be dueling. Have second wind, student of war. Student of war is going to be able to develop a craft, being able to make something. And if we see over here, we're going to give under talents, tools, kits, wood carver's tools. So this fighter in his spare time is carving wood, making things out of wood, totems, spears, arrows, whatever, is developing this craft of making things with wood, carving wood into things. And for the maneuvers, we're going to start off with 4 maneuvers: precision attack, goading attack, rally, commanding presence. The commanding presence comes from Tasha's, and it's a really good maneuver for this type of fighter that we're putting together. because just the presence of this fighter in battle will give bonuses to the other soldiers and warriors around this commander, this leader, fighter that we have. And so we see the superiority dice, the 5 superiority dice, and each dice is 1d8 plus proficiency. That's more than D&D 5e gives, but still, the fighter in Barbaric Fantasy gets a little bump up. And the Tasha build, if you look in Tasha's, there's different builds for Battlemaster type fighters. And these are and for me, there's only 2 or 3 subclasses of fighters that I allow in Barbaric Fantasy. And the Battlemaster is the most used because it has the most ability to be flexible. There's all these, if you look in Tasha's, in that section on fighters, there's these fighter builds. And one of them is strategist. And it gives that commanding presence as one of the maneuvers of this particular type of fighter. So there's so many different types of fighters that you can build just from the Battlemaster class. And that really fits in so well to Barbaric Fantasy, this Battlemaster subclass. But I also allow Cavalier to allow fighters that really want to specialize in mounted combat. And that's pretty much it. And the Battlemaster, because the Battlemaster can be built into any type of fighter. And that's all the fighters you need for Barbaric Fantasy. There's just a huge range of fighters that you can build by picking and choosing different maneuvers and picking and choosing different skills, different weapons, different ways of fighting, and the background. So all that you need for a fighter is basically in Battlemaster class. And by far, the Battlemaster subclass is the most powerful subclass of all fighter subclasses. None of the other subclasses really come close to it. So why not just pick the best, focus in on it, and allow it its diversity to create any type of fighter that you want in Barbaric Fantasy? You got it. So now, this fighter is basically done. The character sheet, all the numbers are set, 2nd level. So this fighter at 2nd level is really just starting out his career as a fighter. And at 2nd level, has so much more growth to do, so many more battles and adventures to go through to develop more skills, more combat, more training of the abilities of strength, to really develop that strength to higher and higher levels, so that the body coordination really develops that strength into an 18 ability score for strength, maybe even someday 20, with a high level of expertise in strength. So you get a sense now of this fighter. Northland, barbaric tribes fighting against each other. This fighter comes from a family of fighters, trained. And then at one point, there was a battle, and it was a brutal battle, and this particular fighter survived and was able to prove himself capable of fighting for the tribe, gained a position of trust and authority in the tribe, and at some point lost a great treasure, had a great treasure and lost it. And that is sort of the flaw that's now going to sit inside this fighter, that the fighter still wants to go out and find a great treasure again and then hold on to it. And whatever that great treasure was, leave that up to you as the player to develop that backstory of what was the treasure, how was it lost, what did it mean? Was it a person? Was it a thing? Was it territory? Was it a position? Was it a treaty? Was it an agreement? Was it a peace? Was it a peace that they had with another tribe, and all of a sudden they lost that? And then you build a story off of that to try and hook the fighter back into another adventure. So you have, this is all the things that you can put together. A commanding tribal fighter who has the trust of the chief and out there protecting. Knows his place in the tribe and is a source of strength and inspiration for those in the tribe. So from there, you get a real picture of a stoic fighter with a position of authority inside the tribe. And that's being reflected in the ability scores, the weapons. Bring down the weapons here. It's being reflected in the weapons. It's being reflected in the skills and training. That there's leadership, perception. There's athletics, animal handling, stealth, survival, willpower. So mentally strong, emotionally strong, physically strong, capable, stable, stoic fighter as an inspiration of strength for the tribe. And then from there, chain shirt, and the features and builds, fighting style, dueling, and got the maneuvers, precision attack, goading attack, rally, commanding presence. So you have this character, and then you have role playing, social interactions. You know who your character is. You know what kind of personality they have. In exploration, you now know that as you're exploring the wilderness, your PC only needs 4 hours of sleep to recoup. Other PCs who don't have that ability, they need 8 hours. And at the end of 8 hours, they have to do an exhaustion roll, which is basically rolling an endurance check. And if they don't succeed at that endurance check, they're going to get a level or 2 levels or 3 levels of exhaustion. But this particular character can withstand not getting a full night's sleep. So you build that in to your character, your PC. And so here you have it. Got some fishing tackle, sharpening tools, wood carver's tools, speed of 35 feet. And as far as packs, a strong character can actually carry more packs. So this particular, let me see, I'm going to bring this up so you can see this on the screen. Higher, you'll see kits and packs over here. And so this character actually has an explorer's pack light. If you want to see what's in that, you come over here, explorer's pack light. Includes a backpack, a blanket, a mess kit, a bucket, a tinderbox, 2 sacks, a small knife, 50 foot of silk rope. So yeah, put together an explorer's pack right there. Another one's the food pack. You want to see what's in the food pack? Come over here, click on food pack. So as this fighter goes off on a journey, we'll have 4 days of food rations and 2 filled water skins, which would be enough water for one day. So the fighter would have to find water each day out in the wilderness. But with a higher survival modifier, because this particular fighter has proficiency in survival, it's going to be easier to find water. And the last one is a Dungeoneer's pack. Now, you don't have to give a Dungeoneer's pack. You can read it and say, okay, this concludes a miner's pick, a shovel and 5 torches. That doesn't sound like our fighter. Okay, well, maybe let's find something else. How about a climber's pack? 10 pythons, a hammer, special boot tips, gloves, and a climbing harness. Does that sound like our fighter? Climbing mountains like that? Not particularly. Diplomat's pack? Well, that would be a chest, a lock, documents. No, that doesn't sound like our barbarian fighter here. Disguise, Dungeoneers, an entertainer's pack? Doesn't sound like our barbarian fighter. How about fishing tackle? That would really help. That would give proficiency in finding food through the rivers and through the lakes across the land. It's a wooden rod, silken line, corkwood bobbers, steel hooks, stone sinkers, velvet lures, and a narrow netting. Something like that could be very compact and fit inside the pack. That's an option, giving our fighter character a fishing tackle. Healer, herbalism, navigator, poisoners, religious pack, scholars pack, thieves' tools. Yeah, at this point in time, the only thing that really makes sense would be fishing tackle. So we come over here, click on fishing tackle, and now fishing tackle is in the inventory of the fighter. And if you want to know what's exactly in the fishing tackle, you just click over here, click on fishing tackle, and you can see what's in there. So there you have it. Everything you need to know about the fighter is right here inside the character sheet. So when you actually make a character, it can take 10, 15 minutes when you know what you're doing. You just go through the Conan books, find a cast, find an archetype, find some talents, find a talent tree that you want to develop, pick on it, you develop your backstory really fast. It just takes a couple of minutes to do that when you know where to look. And the paragraphs become so small, they just give you little glimpses of what you can develop. And then from there, you just run and develop your backstory even farther. But it gives you like little seeds of thoughts to develop all these different types of characters from around the world. So then once you have the class, subclass, casts, and talents, you put it all together and you just come right here to the Excel sheet. And the Excel sheet can be so fast. Within 3 minutes, you have all of the numbers you need super fast. So it took me an hour to explain this process, but if I was to actually make this fighter, I made this fighter in like 5 to 8 minutes. From beginning to end on my own. I knew where to look, I knew where to roll, how to pick it in there, how to place it in the character sheet. It only took 5, 8 minutes at the most. And then you take this information and you can put it directly into whatever role-playing game you want, like Roll20, Fantasy Grounds. You just take this information, you can put it right in there and develop your roles off of it. It's that easy. But the whole idea is to get an idea of who your character is. That's the whole point of character creation. Who is your character? Who is your character? You want to get a really good idea of their nature, their outlook on life, their personality, what they feel, what their presence does to other people, how other people respond to them. And once you get all of that together and you know certain types of armor and weapons and skills, you are ready to play. And that PC is ready to confront certain situations that are going to present themselves. Whether it's a stranger coming into the tribe, or whether they're on an exploration and they come across some strangers, you have your PC and how they're going to react, what their flaw is, what their weakness is, and how they're going to get hooked into another adventure. So that's character creation in Barbaric Fantasy. The real idea is these Conan books, with their ability to really fine-tune your character's backstory, is a gold mine. And for the players in my games in Roll20, they have access to the Conan books. So that's how they get this information to develop their characters. But you can get the Conan books at Modiphius Entertainment. On the internet, just look up Modiphius Entertainment and you'll see all the Conan books that are available. And there's going to be more Conan books coming out within the next year, which are going to develop a lot more of the capabilities of developing characters and stories. So a lot of us are looking forward to that. So I think that is going to do it for this particular stream for Barbaric Fantasy. All right. My name is Wisdom Hunter. I am now going to be signing off and letting you think about what this world of Barbaric Fantasy is really like. Let's see. What is this world of Barbaric Fantasy really like? What kind of people really live in it? What kind of personalities and PCs can you develop that are going to be traveling and adventuring through this world? In the oceans, in the mountains, on the deserts, through the plains, through the hills, through the forests, through inland seas, through inland rivers, through this vast wilderness that exists with an ancient history. What kind of PCs are you going to develop? And how are they going to interact with the world? That all comes down to Barbaric Fantasy. That even the sorcerers and the clerics and the druids in D&D 5e, they have enough magic, they can just blast off with their magic all the time. But in Barbaric Fantasy, they do some magic, but they also have to fight with their swords. They have to get into battle. And so they have to be able to know their position and their capabilities in order to fight. Because in Barbaric Fantasy, you may have to set up a sorcerer with fighting capabilities who knows how to defend themselves in battle. Or if you're just going to have a sorcerer that goes off always finding ancient ruins, you're going to have to find another way to use their magic to the greatest optimal extent. So that's character creation in Barbaric Fantasy. A lot's more to do. So this is Wisdom Hunter signing off from this stream on character creation for a fighter in Barbaric Fantasy. Bye-bye, everybody.